I would say that just because we now have HBO and Netflix, and they do really cool things by putting long story arcs over an entire series instead of just within one episode or within one film of 90 minutes. The structurally speaking, they're the same. So, I mean, one of my favorites is The Wire, for example, yeah? But you can look at any of these, the series House of Cards, Orange is the New Black, stuff like that. They work, structurally speaking, with these arcs, yeah? Only that they pull them over an entire series instead of just within one episode. So that is kind of new, but it's not structurally speaking new. So I would say that no, not really. Storytelling in the last 10 or 20 years has not really changed or developed. So, you know, it's just the way that it's presented, the how, but not the what has changed. The structurally speaking, if you compare, you can go back to Gilgamesh and lay this kind of arc on it. Certainly you can do it with Homer, absolutely. And the Odyssey fits into that very well. And you can go through all of the history of the stories that we know, including stories from other cultures. Joseph Campbell was famous for that, for taking myths from all sorts of cultures and finding that they're structurally speaking all the one myth. They called it the monomyth. Yeah. So I wouldn't say that we have learned something now in the last 10 years that makes storytelling essentially different. Essentially, storytelling is what it is, and it is more or less what I've described here. What is perhaps different is that our analysis of how stories work is much more precise now than it was even 100 years ago. I mean, you look at some older books, for example, E.M. Forster wrote a thing called Aspects of the Novel, or Lagos Egri wrote something called for theatre, how theatre works. And it's very imprecise compared to what we know today about how stories work. And I think this has to do with the idea of talent and genius, and like writers sit in their room and write amazing books, and it all comes from intuition. And there's perhaps even, there's a case for that. There are some writers are geniuses and do write these structures intuitively. Some people write these structures intuitively because they've consumed so many stories, so they've kind of effectively learned it implicitly. But no, I don't think storytelling has essentially changed, and I don't think it will in the near future. No, I think it's more about like how you can do all sorts of things with this form. It's like music. It's like musical notes. Yeah, you can. There is no limitation because we're able to put this sort of form onto it.